excited to get underway and to start the season. I think like every year, and excited to get to Globe Life. We've had a really good fall and a really good 3 weeks, and the weather. Unfortunately, it's not like that today, but we've had some great weather, as a lot of you guys know. I think for the first time in a few years now that we're about as healthy as a baseball team can be going into the first weekend, and like I mentioned earlier, to open up in Globe Life. To be in not only a major league stadium, a tournament that I think now is known around the country in the Shriners Classic, but also with 5 other teams. I think it's safe to say that there'll be a lot of eyes, college baseball fans and reporters and people that are just interested in college baseball around the country, viewing what's happening in Arlington. So we're excited about it. I think I'd be remiss without mentioning Carl Lafferty, our recruiting coordinator, and the job that he and the coaching staff did this summer, reconstructing a roster, which is difficult these days, as you guys know, and deal with all the other sports. But I thought this summer was kind of a neat work by those guys, in the sense that it actually happened in 3 different buckets. The first was super important to retain some guys that normally, I think, in the history of college baseball probably would have signed and moved on to the next part of their career in professional baseball, but to retain Hunter Elliott, Riley Maddox, and Mason Nichols, and Connor Spencer back from last year, which gives us some experience on the mound that we haven't had in quite some time. I've said in different interviews for the last few months, probably the most experience that we've had on the mound since maybe 21, when we returned Hoagland and Nikhazy, to have 3 guys that have not only pitched here but have had success as starters and have had success in the Southeastern Conference, not to mention the success and what we think about Connor Spencer. But also, 3 guys that were part of the national championship team in 22. So not only do they wear a national championship ring, but all 4 of those guys that I mentioned on the mound, are Mississippi kids. Also, a great job by the staff. I thought in the portal, one of the things that we think that's important, from a recruiting standpoint in the portal, is to be able to plug some holes, right? To, when you have some vacancies in the program, how do you plug those holes quickly and do it in such a job that these guys are going to be able to not only get to your program but contribute immediately. And so when we looked, one of the things that we've learned, through the portal, is the kids that are more experienced, that have played at this level, especially in Power 5 schools, guys that have played big-time college baseball, seem to have more success at this level in the Southeastern Conference. And so we lost our entire outfield from last year. And so in the portal, signing Ryan Moorman from University of Illinois, who had 19 home runs last year, Isaac Humphrey from the University of Louisville, who's been a mainstay in the middle of their lineup and a team captain for them, and then Mitch Sanford from the University of New Orleans, but played 2 years at LSU, so has SEC experience, was a Sun Belt Player of the Year. Helps us tremendously in the outfield. One of the things that we didn't do well last year was defend. And so we signed Luke Chang from Illinois State, a shortstop, and also added some depth to the catching position, adding Austin Foley from the University of Kentucky and Colin Reuter from BYU. And then along with that reconstruction of the roster to try to maintain another outstanding recruiting class. And so we only lost 1 recruit to the Major League Baseball draft in July. That recruiting class that's on campus now, that high school recruiting class, was ranked number 4 in the country. I think highlighted by Owen Pano, shortstop from New York, Cade Townsend, right-handed pitcher from California, and Owen Hancock, a right-handed pitcher from Georgia. And so, with that, I think many of you knew, and we're here. We had a press conference early fall announcing Joe Mangrum as our pitching coach, and he's done an outstanding job. And so I'll start off with the pitchers. Starting on Friday night will be Hunter Elliott against the University of Arizona. On Saturday will be Riley Maddox against Texas. And then against Clemson, we'll start Mason Nichols. And the bullpen will be anchored, as no surprise, and I guess maybe in memory of Parrish Alford, who would ask, who's the closer. I don't think there's a doubt this year it'd be Connor Spencer. Some other, I think, notables is Mason Morris from Tupelo. He just continues to develop, and one of the most talented guys that we have on the staff will start off in the bullpen, along with Will McCausland and Alex Canny, 2 kids that we recruited out of the transfer portal. Also, some veterans. We talked about the experience on the mound with Braden Jones, Sam Takoyan, Ryan Rodriguez, and Gunnar Dennis. Starting off in the bullpen. JUCO transfer from Meridian Community College, Landon Waters, and then the freshman that I mentioned, Townsend and Hancock, along with Walker Hooks from Brandon High School, who's had a terrific fall for us in early spring. As I get into the position players, I probably should have said it before the pitchers. I've asked a lot, and I know there's a lot of questions about the rotation and the lineup, and I don't think it's coaches speak. That's the rotation, the lineup that we set on Friday. There'll be 3 different lineups throughout the weekend: Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We realize that we're not intramurals, but the thing is, baseball's different. It's not like the football quarterback who starts and hopefully barring any injury, that guy's going to start 12 games for you. The rotation can go up and down. Guys can move from bullpen to starter, and same with the position players. And I think some of our guys were fortunate that are athletic enough and can play multiple positions. That's going to give us an opportunity to try to find that best 9. Not necessarily the 9 best guys, but the best 9, meaning that collectively that's your best team. I think it's probably more so like maybe a basketball team. Which 5 are you the best basketball team? I think baseball is very similar. So starting with the position players, Mormon, Humphrey, Sanford, who I've mentioned. And along with that, you'll probably see 2 starts for one center fielder, and then another start, meaning Humphrey and Sanford will probably flip back and forth from center to right field. I think both of them are outstanding out there. We just got to figure out, what's best for us in center field. But I think they're both outstanding outfielders. In the infield, Luke Hill and Judd Utermark have gotten almost all the reps at third base. Both of them, as mentioned earlier, are the outstanding athletes and can play just about anywhere on the field. Luke will surely get at least a one-game start at second base. Judd likely to get a start besides third base, maybe in the outfield and possibly at first base as well. Owen Pano will start at shortstop. Braden Randall at second base. Will Furness at first base. Behind the plate, Campbell Smithwick, and I've already mentioned Austin Foley. I think certainly Foley will get a start, or 2 this weekend. And then other position players that I think either will get a start at DH or somewhere on the field. Colin Reuter, either catcher, first base, or DH. Hayden Federico's freshman. It's been terrific both fall and spring. Second base or possibly outfield. And I mentioned Luke Chang. And so, again, I think the lineup will be fluid through the first several weeks, as we start to maneuver not just places in the lineup, but figure out, versus right-handed pitching versus left-handed pitching, who are, best nine, are. So with that, I'll open it up to you guys for questions.
Mike, you just going to take me through Campbell's improvement defensively, receiving from last year? What's kind of been like since?
Yeah, he's been outstanding, and I think last year, and I'm sure probably ask him. He's here today. It was a tough year for him. And it's tough. And a lot of people don't understand. But when you're really talented, this league still is tough. Regardless of how good you really are, regardless of what position. And I say this. I thought it was a bad decision by myself. Once we knew Campbell was going to be here and was going to give up the major league draft, we decided to not go after another catcher in the portal, and that was probably a mistake. Or not probably, it was a mistake. It was unfair. To put it all on him. And but to Campbell's credit, he's had an outstanding summer in the Cape Cod League. He's caught terrific here, in the fall and early spring, and we all know he can hit, but he's caught more like the catcher that we all know he can be. And so excited about his improvement. And another thing along with that, Coach Lafferty has always worked with the catchers, but with Mangrum working with the pitchers now, I think, we've benefited from that position where Lafferty is, 100% with the catchers all the time. And I think that's helped a lot, not just with Campbell, but with Foley and Reuter as well. They've all not only received and blocked well, they've thrown, it's been outstanding. I think in early spring here we've thrown out over 50% of the base stealers, and so obviously that shows you what Campbell and the other guys have done, but it also has shown you what a great job Mangrum's done with the pitchers and controlling the running game.
Mike, what's impressed you the most about Owen Pena to this point, and what's giving you confidence to put him out there at shortstop at such a young age?
I don't think anybody doubted the talent, but as what I just said, in the previous question, it's tough to come out here and play every day and be successful as a freshman, and not many have done that. And it doesn't mean that you won't be great in times, going on. I mentioned all the time, Tim Elko, there's a statue of him, and he'll be the first to admit that, he probably wasn't, the player that he wanted to be for a few years. And so with that, he's got all the tools, the tangibles and intangibles. I mean, he's been terrific defensively, and he continues to get better. I've always believed that probably the biggest development for freshman position players usually is defense, just because as they grow up in travel baseball, and this is not throwing stones at high school or travel baseball, it's just a skill that people just don't work on as much, because of time, because of the tournaments that they're playing in, and then not to mention a kid from New York, where he's probably limited in how many games he's going to play in the springtime. And he was a good defender when he got here, but he's even improved in the 5 or 6 months. Physical, offensive player. I don't want to compare him, and I'm comparing him, so I probably shouldn't say I don't want to compare him, but very similar to Jacob Gonzalez, I think, when he got here. There's a there's a slower pulse when you watch him play. He doesn't seem to get rattled, and even making an error or making a mistake, he seems to be able to come back, and he's terrific and very talented.
Mike, what have you seen the biggest impact or change Joel has done with the pitchers so far?
I think that's probably a better question for the guys that are here, and probably get a few better answers from them. But I think a couple things that may be different than they may answer. The first, I think, is just time. He's able to be with them so much more. which is great and refreshing, where they get a lot more one-on-one time. And I thought, that's neat, and that's how he's, kind of devised the throwing programs and things where he's working with guys. And like a rain day today, like he's one of the reasons he's not here is because they already started, some group work. And so that's terrific. I think the other thing I think is an obvious improvement is that, we wanted to hire somebody that was kind of at this, the top of technology development, somebody from professional baseball, and not just a minor league pitching coach and not throwing stones at those guys, but somebody at an upper level that is used to dealing with a lot of technology, because we wanted to be cutting edge. And he's checked all those boxes. I've said it several times that we also wanted somebody with a college background, because it's not just about development, it's not just about technology, because a lot of pro guys, they don't have to develop them for years, right? You draft a kid out of Oxford High School at 18 years old, he doesn't have to make it to the big leagues for 5 years. We need them to develop in 5 months. They need to come in August and improve and be a better pitcher, when you open up in February. And so Joel's background in college before professional baseball, I think, lends itself to that, and he understands what we do, not to mention the recruiting part of it. That the college pitching coach also has to wear another hat, and that's recruiting, and he's got to be able to deal and communicate with 16, 17-year-old kids. You have to be able to communicate and recruit, the parents as well, where a lot of people in professional baseball have never done that. So I think he's impacted the program on a lot of different levels. But the thing probably that I've seen the most is just the relationship, the time that he's been able to spend with those guys, and I think that's terrific.
Will Coach Mangrum be calling pitches this spring?
Yes.
How exciting is it to get a guy like Elliott back in the lineup, and just what would be your assessment of him this offseason?
Yeah, it's super exciting. Obviously very talented, a kid that except for about 5 innings, the last time you really saw him at his best, it's in the College World Series, and then I got to see him, internationally with the USA team. And so I know he's excited. It's been a long road for him. It's because of the injury, and when he ended up having the operation, he ends up missing, a couple years. But I think to watch him, pitch this fall, I thought that, myself and Coach Mangrum thought it was so important this fall. Not so much success, failure, that type of stuff, but for him to get out there and probably to experience both. To experience some success, but also to experience some tough innings and tough weekends, because to come back from that injury, although most people do come back, you stop throwing for a long time competitively, and I think it takes a while, and that's why some guys, don't have success immediately. But for him, it's been a long time, and so and to watch his progression through the fall and really in the early spring, he's been super.
If I could ask short-term and big picture, but short-term, what are you hoping to see from your team just in Arlington, and then big picture, have you set a goal for this team to achieve?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. The goals have always been the same, and the expectations, we want to get to Omaha and win another national championship, and the goals that are written, on the wall before the guys, enter the dugout. I said in my opening press conference, here 25 years ago, so the goal is to win 40 regular season games. Goal number 2 is, to win the Southeastern Conference Championship. Goal number 3 is to host a regional. Goal number 4 is to host a super regional. And goal number 5 is to get to the College World Series. Goal number 6 is to win a national championship. So, those goals have always been the same. This weekend particularly, I think, the goal is just like any weekend, is you want to play well. And so there's a couple different things. One, you want to play well in all three phases, but you also want to learn how to win baseball games. And it's not a secret that we haven't been the team that we expect to be the last couple of years. And so this is going to be like an SEC weekend, and it's a good it's not the end all be all, but it's a good test out of the gate to figure out how to win a weekend, how to go there and have success, how to compartmentalize each game, and take it for what it's worth, but to walk out at the end of the weekend and hopefully have played well and hopefully have won, a couple games or more.
How important has it been recently, I guess, to have guys who are going into year 2, year 3 in the bullpen and having a pitching change going on within the program?
If I understand the question right, I think experience is, so important on both sides of the ball. Old teams win, in college baseball, and talent matters, but experience probably matters more, and especially if you have talented experience, right? And when you look, a few years ago in 21, when Mississippi State won the national championship, they were a very old team. When we won a national championship in 22, we were a very old team. And 23, when when LSU won it, they were an old team. Old seems to win, and especially on the mound. Guys that have been through the rigors of the Southeastern Conference, that are, they've been beaten up and have been victorious and kind of know how to navigate and get through that, I think is super important. It's tough to do, as we've mentioned several times already today. It's tough to do when you're young. It doesn't mean it can't be done, but it's tough. And to have guys that have had success in this league, I think is super important. Mike?
Coach, with the abolishing of the East-West divisions, we're awful heavy on former East teams this year. Both home and away. And by my back of the napkin math, 4,300 miles stadium to stadium travel for the SEC road trip.
I'm just going to trust you on that one.
All right, for SEC only. Got to be a record for travel for conference games.
Yeah, but fortunately, we have a great athletic director and administration, so we'll be flying to most of those. So we'll get there faster than getting on a bus. So be careful what you wish for, right? The schedule's the schedule, and I know I always laugh this time of year because a lot of the reporters, and this isn't making fun. There's not a lot for you guys to write about, so you write about the schedule, right? I've been in this for long enough to realize that I wouldn't even want to pick the teams, right? Because there's going to be teams that are really good in our league that nobody's expecting to win, and there's going to be some teams that are supposed to be good that won't be as good. That's kind of the beauty of the Southeastern Conference. All the teams are good, and it comes down to weekends and did you win or did you not? Did you win 2 out of 3? Did a team sweep or get swept? And those things can really spin a season, and I think so much is made up of the schedule. We're going to play 10 weekends against Southeastern Conference teams. That means that's going to be 30 really tough games, and everybody has that. And again, I'm not trying to make fun. I get it, but everybody talks about the schedule until you start playing, and then all of a sudden it's about the real games. And that's, I think that we get caught up too much, and I haven't. It is what it is, and again, if all that travel is what you say, and I trust you with that, my guess is next year it won't be. Right? And what does that mean? Does that mean, tougher, more? I think it's a lot easier to evaluate the schedule after the season, of who you played and who you didn't play. I think that makes probably more sense. And as some of our coaches say, sometimes in baseball with injuries, or, streaks, or who's playing really well at a certain time, or what their lineup's really swinging it well, or certain hot pitchers, or somebody that had to step down because, an arm injury or whatnot. Sometimes it matters more of when you play them than who you play. And so.
With the addition of Joel and kind of spreading out the responsibilities for you, what was kind of the approach through fall and this early preseason?
I think specifically, going in, and I told him he didn't like it. He wanted me around more, but I thought it was, probably best that I probably stay away from the pitchers more so than I probably would on a normal year. I think for common sake, or common sense, where I think one, to give him some room to do and be himself, and to coach him the way he would coach them. And then number two, because of my relationship in coaching the pitchers, the last, few years, and we talked about, the experience in those guys, to not, stunt that by me being there and them, if there was something that was contradictory or something that we did, we want to win. And Joel wants to win, the staff wants to win, and certainly I want to win. And I thought that was smarter this fall. I don't know if it'll always be like that, but I tried to not sit in bullpens, and then towards the end I couldn't resist as much, so I would sit at the back end and try to be out of the way. But would take notes during inter-squad games, and we would talk afterwards. As far as my role, one of the things that, to be more specific, we'll meet every morning prior to a game, and I'll have more time, this is kind of to that question, to meet with Clem and talk about the lineup. But I'm looking forward to that, to be able to sit down with him like we did about the rotation, to discuss it. I don't necessarily know if debate's the right word, but to discuss it, to hear his opinion, to hear his convictions on different game plans and who should be first out of the bullpen in certain situations, those types of things. And then I actually had a Zoom, with a major league manager, to kind of go over things like that and get different game plans of managing the game and what's the role. And then, and part of that is to try to make sure that, there's going to be things that are gut instincts and things that, being the head coach, that you're going to want to do and make some moves, but also, with a card in my pocket, that make sure that, we're true to the game plan. And this is what we decided, not let it get too emotional to where we get off the game plan. I think that's also my role as well, to say, hey, we said we were going to do this, and this is what we need to do. And so, but he's been terrific, and especially the last probably week, as we've had more conversations on exactly, what we're going to do going into the first weekend. So it's been good.
Kind of assess this team overall defensively. I mean, you've gotten better. It looks like the guys coming in all were an emphasis there.
Yeah, it was, and you're exactly right. And I'm really happy. I mean, I thought usually when you talk defense, you talk infield, and I think we've gotten better. I think the returners have gotten a lot better, but I think, the kids that we mentioned have gotten better. And then when you talk about the outfield, I think there's no doubt we're faster than we were last year, just pure speed, and we look more athletic. And then when you get some older outfielders like those guys that I've mentioned, they've made it look pretty easy out there. We've covered some ground. I don't know if we have that true prototypical center fielder that's a burner, but man, all three outfielders can really run and can really cover some ground. They all throw pretty well. And again, we talked about Campbell's, improvement behind the plate, but also those other guys. Foley's been terrific. Reuter's a really good receiver. So I think we've really almost upgraded just about every position defensively.
Some of the numbers weren't great on Connor Spencer last year, but what gives you the confidence that he has another level to be that anchor of the bullpen?
Yeah, I just think last year was really unfair. It depends on the games that you look at. He's outstanding. I mean, arguably as talented as anybody on the staff. He's developed a split finger ball, changeup, but a split finger ball that's been really good for him. Last year, it's tough to be on the closer on a team that doesn't win a ton, and so because of our season last year, I think, he unfortunately got used in not that role enough. And so you end up getting pushed into a game earlier than a closer would be getting pushed in, or sometimes you get up and down too many times because you're trying to save your best bullet, and so there's times where I think last year we just didn't handle him very well in usage, not overused necessarily, but a guy that he was our closer but didn't get to pitch enough in that role to shine.
Leaders Luke Hill been since the the end of the season. It's like he held some guys together right when it ended, and they've just kind of been able to sense a little different.
Yeah, he's been terrific, along with Will Furness. It was a tough time last summer, and you need some leaders. You need some guys that are returning that love it here, and those guys were terrific. I think when there was a little maybe uncertainty for a few days there. Those guys, I thought, held everything together, and proud of those guys. Anything else? Yes.
Coach, I guess what excites you most about this year's group? I know you talked a lot about different position groups throughout this press conference, but what excites you? I guess what position group excites you the most about this year's team?
I don't know if there's one, but I think the thing that is probably the biggest plus is the pitching staff, especially the experienced guys that I've mentioned. Returning Maddox and Elliott and Nichols. Spencer. I think is kind of a huge coup that I don't think anybody probably even a week into the going into the draft thought that would happen, including us. But proud of those guys, that, they felt that, they wanted to come back for another year. And I don't want to speak for those guys, but, I think they felt like they wanted, these guys were champions and didn't want it to end that way and wanted another run at it. All right, thank you.